How's it going, everyone? Swanee and Cookie back at it again with some Helldivers 2 news, and today there's actually a decent amount of new information to go over. Arrowhead CEO and CCO Shams Jorjani and Johan Pielstedt did an interview at a Korean gaming conference where they revealed a lot of new information about the future of Helldivers 2, so we'll be going over all that and giving you our thoughts on everything. So Cookie, why don't you start us off?
Well, before I get started, I do want to point out that this interview was translated from Korean as well as some Swedish, I believe, so the translation is a little messed up, and you will see some words misspelled here and there and stuff like that, and even the sentences might sound a little choppy, so just wanted to kind of throw out that disclaimer before I put all of this out there for you guys, like the graphics on the screen and such. Alright, so one of the first things and one of the most interesting things that they talked about in this interview has to do with something we really haven't heard almost any information on in a really long time, and that's about vehicles. The interviewer asked about wheeled vehicles, armored vehicles, or reconnaissance vehicles that may come to the game. Pielstedt said that Super Earth is conducting various experiments to improve the mobility of Helldivers, and Shams kind of added, it's dangerous to send expensive equipment to the battlefield and all this other kind of stuff. Of course, it would be fun to put 4 Helldivers in one vehicle and run around shooting guns. And then they kind of made jokes going back and forth. But at the end of all of that, Pielstedt does say on a more serious note, vehicle updates are in the plans. It will be added soon, but I don't think I can go into more detail than that. So this is pretty significant information because honestly, I thought they had kind of just trashed the whole idea of putting vehicles into this game. It's very surprising that they are actively planning on putting it in the game, and he did use the word soon, so I don't know what exactly that means, but it sounds like that's not that far from being added.
Yeah, I mean, the vehicles were leaked like way back months and months ago.
March.
Yeah, forever ago, and like you, I thought that they just kind of scrapped the idea, like it just wouldn't work with the game engine. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the game's going to play a lot different once we get vehicles too. And there's a lot of like bumps and cliffs and rocks in Helldivers maps. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, is this vehicle going to get stuck every time we bump into a rock, or are we going to have to like bail from the vehicle and get out because there's so many like procedurally generated cliffs where you have to like walk around on foot? So, and there's a lot of like swampy area and bodies of water. So I don't feel like a vehicle is going to work for every single scenario and every single map. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's a pretty significant change because, you know, a lot of people, especially, I know we struggle a lot of times to get everything done, pretty much every game, regardless of difficulty, in the time that's allotted to you. If you had a vehicle, I would think that would be very easy to get everything at least attempted to be accomplished within a 40-minute period that you get in those missions. So this is very surprising to me. I'm just curious how they implement it. Is it going to be the same as the mech? You get 2 of them in a single mission, or are they going to do it completely differently than everything else?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see what they do, but you know, considering the mech really had pretty few glitches, I don't like with its maneuverability and everything. Obviously, it's a lot slower than I would imagine those vehicles would be, but it didn't seem to cause much of an issue with the mech, so hopefully they add it. It would definitely add a lot to the game if they had some kind of cool vehicles that we could mess around with. So
I just imagine that a vehicle would get just annihilated when you're facing the automatons because they can shoot it from a distance, but the Terminids have to like physically get up and punch your vehicle. So I feel like the vehicle would do a lot better against the Terminids, but that's just, you know, speculation on my part. Who knows?
Yeah, and like I said, the mechs like eventually were able to take on the automatons, but when they first came out, they did just get completely wrecked by them. So yeah, there'll probably be a lot of adjustments, I'm sure, just like almost anything else that comes out. But yeah, very surprised that this is something that they're actively working on at this point. Another important question the interviewer asked was talking about the future of the game, saying, from a gamer's perspective, there are many gamers who have already completed all the upgrades and unlocked equipment and are hoarding resources. Can you tell us about the new growth system? Pielstedt says that this is a topic that's top of mind for us right now. And Shams actually goes on to talk about stuff with the DSS, because this interview was actually, I think, conducted on the 14th of November before, you know, around the time the DSS was coming out and everything. But they also went on to say that it's been activated and gamers will be able to use resources and stuff to pay for stuff, but then adds in more features will be enabled next week. So that's kind of potentially very interesting because the DSS as it sits right now has the 3 abilities, and at the moment all 3 are in cooldown, so I guess the DSS is just useless at the moment. So it does look like there's potentially going to be more options than just the 3 options we have right now, which is really good news, I would think, because we've already talked about how much we don't like the DSS. This gives it a little bit more interest, I would think.
Yeah, I'm predicting the DSS will eventually, over time, get a lot better. It just had a really awful launch that was extremely underwhelming. But I think if they have, like, I don't know, 9 different abilities it can cycle through, like you'll have 3 on cooldown, and then you'll have another 3 you can choose from, and then when those go on cooldown, you have like another 3 you can choose from. I think that would make the DSS at least a little bit more interesting. They still need to change the way that the voting system works with your samples, because that's still confusing to just the average player that logs in. So it definitely needs some tweaking, but I could see it getting a lot better and just becoming a regular part of the game that players get used to. And I don't know, I liked the Eagle Strike when it was added, but then that other like orbital bombardment, the barrage sucked, and that other thing, it just gave you a booster. That was pretty underwhelming too. So I definitely want to see more things added to the DSS, because right now, like you said, it's just sitting there on cooldown, and that's not very fun for this new exciting thing that we just got. It's just kind of sitting there now. That's kind of boring.
It doesn't make any lore sense either. Like, where do you want this useless piece of metal to go? It's like, who gives a shit? Yeah. So yeah, it's very bizarre that they're doing it that way. So hopefully that gets changed too. I just find it weird that this was just kind of thrown in there. Like, this is like, it was literally just 6 words or 6 or 7 words about it. It's a big deal. Why don't they just tell us this stuff? Like, I don't understand why this is a secret. The DSS is already out, so that's a little bizarre. Right after this, they also said that in addition to this, they are planning crossovers, like collaborations with other IPs. We don't want to do too many crossovers, but we are fully considering appropriate collaboration to suit the game's atmosphere. For example, collaboration with Power Rangers would be difficult in concept, but wouldn't it be possible to do something like Black Ranger? That's what I want. That was all from Shams Jorjani said that. So that's interesting. Pilstead has talked in the past about doing collaborations and stuff, even when he wasn't even that prompted to talk about it. So this definitely does seem to be something that they're thinking about a lot. They went on to say one other thing about this too, because the interviewer kind of asked another question about it, like what exactly do they mean. Pilstead says it hasn't been decided yet, but I also think IPs like Warhammer are good. Shams went on to say I think Alien would be a pretty good theme. The reporter mentioned StarCraft or Starship Troopers, and they weren't so sure about StarCraft, but obviously Starship Troopers, major inspiration for the game. So this is definitely a very important thing that they're talking a lot about. I'm kind of surprised by this, to be honest, that they want to take this path is kind of surprising to me, because they seem to be so obsessed with the lore and keeping everything within the lore. I don't know how this would ever work in lore, so
they'll find
surprises
a way.
me.
I feel like this is going to come in the form of war bonds. I don't feel like they're going to add any like new enemy types or anything. It'll probably just be like a themed war bond with new armor set based off of whatever they're collaborating with. So like, let's go with Alien. They'll probably have some sort of armor set that goes with the theme of Alien. They're not going to add like actual xenomorphs with the Terminids or anything. That would be interesting. Or they have like a special event where there's xenomorphs, but I feel like that's way too much work and effort for them to do for a temporary collaboration. So it'll probably just be a war bond or a cape or something small would be my guess.
Yeah, like I'm not one of the people that's obsessed with the lore, so I don't care how deep they go into this, because I've heard rumors and stuff that like they're very against certain IPs, but certain IPs they're fine with, because for some reason Alien would work when something like Star Wars or Star Trek wouldn't. I don't really get it. At my point, if you're going to start doing IPs, you might as well do them all. But whatever. The point is, like, I'm perfectly fine with this. I'm just surprised that Arrowhead wants to go in this direction. This just seems odd for them. But if they want to do it, I think it's a cool idea, and could be really interesting. They also made a really interesting point later on in the interview that I've kind of heard about before, about the faction calling themselves the Chaos Divers, which this is just kind of an interesting thing in lore, where there's been multiple different fans and stuff on Reddit and on Discord and stuff that are trying to call themselves the Chaos Divers, that just want to see the Helldivers fall and stuff. And Pilstead did say in this interview that right now I'm thinking about how to incorporate these Chaos Divers into the game, as in it would actually, I don't know exactly what that would mean in the game, but it's just, I think it's a really interesting idea if they actually use Chaos Divers as its own faction. That's a lot to hope for. But I know they've talked about doing this in the past. Basically, Helldivers that have betrayed the Helldivers and are now fighting against the Helldivers in some sort of way. Or they might just incorporate it into like major orders and stuff. But I do find that to be something that would be kind of cool if they really wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because people that just got mad at communication became Chaos Divers and now are fighting against the Helldivers in some type of way.
Just a rogue faction. That's probably what the broadcast towers are. It's just like rogue people.
Yeah.
Fed up with Super Earth.
Like I said, I think it's completely unrealistic to think that they'll create a complete faction just for the Chaos Divers, even though that would be awesome, and I really hope they do that. I don't think there's any way that happens, but I do think it would be just cool to add that into the lore as part of the crazy
What
stuff
if
that
they
could happen in the
had
game.
a secondary objective that was like a radio station that was protected by AI Chaos Divers? Like just really ramped up.
Yeah.
Just AI bots that are dressed up as Helldivers, and you have to kill them. That would be neat.
So literally just like one area on the map, not like the entire map is controlled by the Chaos Divers.
Just like one little, like those research stations that you have to blow up, just have them protected by Chaos Divers or something. That's just
that would
something
honestly
they could do.
be hilarious. Because I hope they have voice lines. They're like, oh, fuck freedom. Or there's like, or they're just like totally anti-liberty in ridiculous ways.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think it would be hilarious. So that would be cool. And that's one of the things I really like about this game, that they kind of try to do that kind of stuff. It usually doesn't seem to work out, but oh, it'd be hilarious. There'd be so many people role playing as Chaos Divers and stuff. I think it's a really good idea to lean into that, and I like how Arrowhead is willing to do that. I'm just not really sure how they'll implement it, but I think that would be a really cool idea. So I wanted to point that out. So, and the last thing was that the interviewer did try to get them to talk about the Illuminate. So the interviewer asked, "Can you tell us about the Illuminates?" And they basically said nothing. Pilstead just said they're banished from the galaxy 100 years ago. They're never coming back. And Shams kind of said the same thing, but did say if they did come back, it would be a really big problem. But officially, Super Earth does not recognize the existence of other undemocratic aliens. So still not going anywhere with that. Not that I'm particularly surprised.
It's not that they were going to reveal it in this interview. It could still be months before we see the Illuminate. I think the Illuminate's pretty much done, in my opinion. I think they're just waiting for the best time financially for them to release the Illuminate. So maybe they're, going to see a dip in the player base, or they're waiting until next year so they could see a big increase in revenue. It's all about making the most amount of money. So they're going to release the Illuminate whenever they think it's going to make them the most amount of money. So I think it might be next year. It could be in December for all I know. We're not going to know.
Yeah, we're not. And I'm done speculating. We've done it for like 3 or 4 videos trying to speculate a couple times when the Illuminate's going to come out. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just going to say that, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
So there's a couple interesting things there. I'm definitely excited for the vehicles, and that's going to be very interesting to see if we get any type of vehicle get around the map a lot faster, especially on those late game difficulties. And they did say in the past they're going to add more harder difficulties, so a vehicle will definitely help out there. But yeah, pretty interesting interview, and we'll be getting more stuff probably this week. And if there is going to be a Warbond, they would announce it this week, and then we would get it next week. So if they do have a Warbond trailer, we'll keep you guys up to date on that. But that is going to do it for everything in today's video. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss out on any future Helldivers 2 news updates. And that is going to do it for us, and we will talk to you guys in the next video.